go.
Timer's ready.
All right, sweet. So how did religion play a role in the Civil War? And how did the Second Great Awakening have a role in the society coming up to the Civil War and leading up to the Civil War? And specifically in the issue of slavery. So during the Second Great Awakening, there were three major things that happened. There was a renewed call for the abolition of slavery. There was a religious revival and the growth of the church, and all people were accepted and had great meetings together, and it didn't matter like their social class or anything like that. So the first thing is that there was new calls for the abolition of slavery. During the Second Great Awakening, because it was such a great religious revival that swept through the nation, people actually began to see that black man was their brother just as much as fellow whites were. So once they saw it, it was a moral issue, and it wasn't just an issue of economics. Slavery became an issue of morals, and people saw that through the religious revival of the Second Great Awakening. So the religious revival led to the growth of the church, and as it swept the nation, the church grew, and there were massive groups that came together, and they would listen to preachers for hours. And in the north, in the big cities, there would be big prayer meetings that came together, and like the lower class, the higher classes, like they would all come together and they'd have Bible studies and prayer meetings in the mornings before work. So that like was a real shocker to other countries that in the new free society in America, that the lower classes and the higher classes could stand and kneel side by side with each other and have those conversations and pray for one another. Even though they weren't necessarily on the same economic level or even in the same political party. The religion was more important than that, and their faith was more important than political differences. All people were accepted during the Second Great all the people were accepted and prayed together during the Second Great Awakening. This had a great this played a role in the coming of the Civil War because of the religious revival. With religious revival comes renewed morality, and when you have a higher level, a higher authority, then mankind has to have morals when you have that authority. So the Second Great Awakening really played a big part in that role, specifically with slavery, because when you realize slavery as a moral issue, it couldn't be stood for anymore just because it was merely an economic benefit. So what the Second Great Awakening's effect on slavery can be like summed up on the culture coming up to slavery before the Civil War can be summed up in 3 points. That the Second Great Awakening had effect on the renewed calls for the abolition of slavery. It prompted religious revival in the New World, and all people were accepted, and no matter what class they were in, they prayed together and were accepted in the religious community of the day.
Very good.